can start now, ma'am.
Yeah. Samir, would you like to begin?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can start now. Exactly 10 and 1.
नाही मी आता फक्त सूप बनवते सूप बनवणार बस आता म्यूट मध्ये
Before starting, I requesting all to please mute yourself. So there will be least disturbance and everybody can hear me properly. Piyush, can you able to mute everyone?
Done, sir.
Yeah. So dear all, very good morning. And on behalf of the AACCI, I, Dr. Samir Shah, National Coordinator of AACCI, welcomes you in Padmabhushan Awardee Dr. R.D. Lele Oration 2022. As we start this oration last year, this is our second oration. Last year we having conducted on 17th of the January. On that occasion, we having Dr. Anuradha Sovani was orator, Dr. Chorgade was the chief guest, and Dr. Pukraj Bapna was guest of the honor. We are lucky that all dignitaries also joined today in this program, along with our respected Sri Dr. R.D. Lele sir. So as we know our Indian tradition, we will start our program with the lamp lighting. So welcome you again, and we all know any academic phase should not end with our start with the Saraswati Vandana. So this Saraswati Vandana rendered by Mrs. Jayashree Rande. Thank you, Jayashree Rande, madam, for such a nice rendering of Saraswati Vandana. Now, we having a speech by Dr. Yashwant Bhave, Mr. Yashwant Bhave, madam, Bhave sir, our AACCI Vice Chairman. Sir, before starting your speech, are you want to welcome physically?
No, let him first finish the video, then he'll talk.
Okay, sure. So I'm starting his video.
As Vice Chairman of AACCI, it is my pleasant duty to welcome everyone to the second Padmabhushan Awardee Dr. R.D. Lele Oration today. As a brilliant doctor and a consummate teacher, but above all, a considerate human being, he has found a place in the heart of his every student and colleague. We are very happy that Dr. Lele is with us today after becoming 94 years on 16th of January 2022. Like last year, we are required to present a virtual get-together. We are grateful as the AACCI family and the Lele Bhave family for this virtual get-together. I welcome Lieutenant General Dr. Madhuri Kanitkar, Vice Chancellor of MUHS, who will be delivering the oration. Param Vishishta Seva Medal, PVSM, has been conferred upon her on the Republic Day, which she so richly deserves. Congratulations, Madam. I also welcome the Chief Guest, Dr. Mridula Phadke, UNICEF consultant and former Vice Chancellor, MUHS, and the guest of honor, Dr. Uday Bodhankar, President ComHAD. All of them have graciously agreed to participate in this function. The AACCI team will be separately introducing them to all of you. I also welcome close to 500 participants. We are indeed overwhelmed by this number. This shows the affection for Dr. Lele as well as the popularity of our speakers and dignitaries. To give a background of this oration, in 2007, that is 15 years ago, AACCI was started under the chairmanship of Dr. Lele and Dr. Swati Bhave as the executive director for promoting holistic health in children through parents and teachers. More details of expansion of AACCI into 10 centers and over 200 volunteers will be given in the formal introduction to AACCI. An introduction to his life's journey of Dr. Lele will be given by his daughter and executive director, Dr. Swati Bhave. To honor him on completion of his 93rd year on 16th of January 2021, the AACCI board decided to start an annual oration in his name on virtual platform every year on a Sunday following the day of his birth, that is 16th of January 1928. The first AACCI Dr. R.D. Lele oration was delivered on 17th January 2021 by Dr. Anuradha V. Sovani, the then Dean Humanities and Head of Psychology Department in the SNDT University, Mumbai. The topic was Holistic Health of Children and Young People, Role of Parents, Teachers, and Grandparents. His student, now a senior pediatrician, Dr. Sorghade, was the chief guest, and Padma Shri Awardee, Dr. Pukhraj Bafna, was the guest of honor. We are very happy that all of them are able to be present here today. Last year, we had crossed 100 on AACCI Zoom platform, and many were disappointed. So this year, we decided to take DigiShield platform to accommodate more number. Looking forward to hearing Lieutenant General Dr. Madhuri Kanitkar's oration on war against COVID. Thank you very much.
So very thanks, sir, for the warm welcome to all. And we all know good start is the half done. So it's a really good beginning with the welcome to all. Now it's my privilege being a national coordinator of the AACCI to introduce the AACCI in very short introduction.
Before you do that,
Namaste.
Samir,
Yes,
I would specially like to invite Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar, who has graciously consented to our invitation yesterday to join today's program. Welcome, Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar. Thank you very much.
To give quick introduction to AACCI. AACCI. Okay, sir. So can I begin?
Yeah.
Namaskar. As AACCI National Coordinator, I have the privilege to give quick introduction to AACCI. AACCI means Association of Adolescent and Child Care in India was registered in 2007 and launched in 2008 at the hands of MP Milind Deora in presence of Sheriff of Mumbai Indu Sahani. There was a release of AACCI publication of FAQs for parents. There was a public awareness program on prevention of lifestyle disease followed by workshop on life skill education for the student and parenting skill for the. Our mission is holistic health of children, adolescents, and young adults through the two pillars of their life, parents and teachers. We have added one more pillar, that is grandparents, from 2020. We promote healthy lifestyle prevention to prevent non-communicable diseases. We are the group of the doctors, include pediatricians and physicians of all specialties, mental health professionals. We also have volunteers from all stakeholders of child and adolescent health, including the parent, teacher, lawyers, sports physiotherapists, research scientists, etc. We do mainly urban-based work with parents, teachers, and students in school and colleges. We have recently started tribal-based projects. Our mission is holistic health in children, adolescents, and young adults, promotion of the healthy lifestyle, and prevention of lifestyle-associated diseases. Key people in our board of directors are our chairperson, Padmabhushan Awardee, Dr. R.D. Lele sir, Vice Chair, Mr. Yashwant Bhave sir, our Executive Director, Dr. Swati Bhave Madam, and Secretary cum Treasurer, Mrs. Sarmila Lele. Myself, Dr. Samir Shah is National Coordinator and Dr. Surekha Joshi, our Research Coordinator. We have an ethics committee chaired by Dr. Anuradha Soani. Our four forums include youth, parent, teacher, and grandparent are headed by 4 senior pediatricians. We have 10 centers, including 7 city and 3 regional centers, and an international forum center, which established hierarchy and protocols. Last year, we celebrated our 14th anniversary with AACCI Celebration Week and a grand AACCI Cultural Night between 18 to 21 of July. We have a well-established media presence on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have our own website, www.acci.in and www.accitrainingprograms.com. We have no membership fee and anyone can join as volunteer and work with AACCI if accepted by our volunteer committee. We have almost 200 plus volunteers from different parts of India working actively for AACCI with their status reviewed annually. AACCI has been involved in many international activities also. In 2019, AACCI hosted an international advanced training certificate course in adolescent health with Western Michigan State University, USA and DY Patil Vidyapeeth, Pune. Our youth forum team had gone to Paris in 2018, led by Dr. Selja Mane, to work with French Adolescent Society and participated in pre-conference workshop in the 11th Congress of Adolescent Health. Recently, in November 2021, AACCI conducted a session in 12th World Congress led by Dr. Samir Shah, myself. Dr. Swati Bhave was Global Co-Leader for 2020 and 2021 to conduct the International Adolescent Week. Dr. Swati Bhave, Executive Director of AACCI, has been invited to share the work done by AACCI in youth and parenting field in many national and international forums and also in WHO consultative meetings. AACCI has won lots of awards in different categories of community work, including the awareness and education of prevention of NCD in young people, parenting program, and holistic program for adolescent welfare. Since inception, AACCI senior faculties have presented many papers at national and international forums and won many awards. We mentor young people in the AACCI Youth Forum and they also have been presented papers and won awards. AACCI has many publications and training modules for parents, teachers, students and doctors. Our life skill education program is a uniquely conceptualized module for the children and adolescents. Our parenting program and workshops are also regularly held at various places and very well recognized by everyone. AACCI conduct program for all the socio-economic group and various streams of education. Even during last 2 years in lockdown, AACCI has been actively conducted over 100 plus webinars each year on various forums and topics, including the life skill education. AACCI is a founder member of the Healthy India Alliance of NCD Prevention and share AACCI work in various consultative meetings. This is a big honor for AACCI and it is recognized as civil society doing commendable work for NCD prevention. So this is all about the in short of the AACCI because it's a huge task to introduce the AACCI, but I just give the brief about that. Now it's time to introduce our respected Dr. R.D. Lele sir, and उनके लिए मैं एक ही बात कहूँगा, हमें झुका सके वो जमाने में दम नहीं, जमाना हमसे है, हम जमाने से नहीं. And his active life is the and his thinking and big vision will be far ahead from his era, and his journey will be presented by Dr. Swati Bhave madam, his proud daughter. Madam.
Thank you, Samir. Before I start the formal introduction of Dr. Lele, let me say again, as our Vice Chairman has said, we are really overwhelmed by the number of registrations today. We have crossed 550 and there are many more coming on the Facebook. This not only speaks of the respect and love for Dr. Lele over the last many years, but the popularity of today's three VIPs, our star speaker Madhuri Kanitkar and the guest of honor Mrudula and Uday, who are also very much loved and popular. I will speak about my special association with each one of them after our formal introduction session. In the Excel sheet of registration, which I spent time going through yesterday, I have noticed many names who have been connected with my father in some way or the other. Dr. Prashant Karya and Dr. Sandeep Kaude, our AACCI team, are managing the chat box. And after the vote of thanks is over, we are going to have an informal chat session like last year. So those of you who want to connect with Dr. Lele, please put your name, designation, and what line you would speak. And also, if you don't want to come orally, you can put your comments in the chat box. And in that informal session, we will call upon the people who want to talk and also read out the chats. So now coming to my job today, that is introduction of the Padma Shri Awardee Dr. Lele. Samir, can you start the PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. It is my proud privilege to introduce our AACCI chairman, Padmabhushan Awardee, Dr. R.D. Lele. It is not easy to condense into a few slides the 94-year journey of Dr. Lele. So the full PPT has been loaded on the AACCI website, and today I will be showing a few glimpses. I have been associated with Dr. Lele in 3 capacities. I have been very proud and privileged to be his daughter and receive his parenting. I have also been a student at Grand Medical College when he was Professor of Medicine and the Dean. And for the last 15 years, he's been guiding us as the chairman for AACCI. Dr. Lele did his MBBS from Usmania University, and he studied all the textbook in English but wrote in Urdu. And that's why he's very proficient in Urdu Shairi. He went to England and did his MRCP and DTMH after working in a village called Gangapur near Hyderabad because he had to make the finances for going there. And in 1967, he did a fellowship of nuclear medicine in Canada. And he left the lucrative offer which he got at Canada saying, you will get many people in nuclear medicine for Canada, but I have come here to set up nuclear medicine in my country and I should go back. And he's known as a pioneer or father of nuclear medicine and has set up nuclear medicine departments in many medical colleges in the country and the state-of-art nuclear medicine department at Jaslo. He was holding positions of Dean JJ, Director Jaslo, in charge of the nuclear medicine at Lilavati Hospital, and many, many more. Those who really want to know about his inspiring life journey can see his autobiography, Pursuit of Excellence, which is available both in English and in Marathi. And it was released by API in 2010. And the Marathi version was released 2 years later. At 93 years, he had the privilege of having his book release of History of Medicine in India by the Center Council for Research and Ayurvedic Sciences, Ministry of Ayush. The book was released by Rajiv Kumar, Vice Person Niti Aayog, in the august presence of Sri Kiren Rijiju, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and MOS for Ayush. This is not available in print copy, but those who are interested can contact me. I can share the PDF. Some of his awards, there's a huge list. Honorary Degree of Doctor of Science, Homi Bhabha Awards, API Association of Physicians Award, Lifetime Achievement Award from Nuclear Medicine. And the picture of he receiving Padmabhushan and the Dhanvantari Award. A lot of recognitions and working with VIPs around the country. The Vishwanathan's National Excellent Award in Medicine for teaching and medical care. And this is on his 80th, 90th birthday, where we had kept a collage of all his books on a table. There is no subject which Dr. Lele has not covered. Computers in medicine, nuclear medicine, clinical approach and clinical research, which has gone into 4th edition. Books on ancient Indian medicine. He's one of the few allopathic doctors who respected ancient medicine and talked to the Ayurveda and the homeopathy and wrote books on it. He tried very hard to bring them on board to do evidence-based trials, but unfortunately, that did not work out. He also was very good in the legal aspects and have written books for medical profession and the law. 2 of these were published by the Rotary. He was a very well-known Rotarian, getting the Paul Harris Award and distinguished awards in a lot of his Rotary activities. This is a picture of Grand Medical College 125th celebration, where Boman Irani came and addressed all of us in the famous anatomy hall, which was picturized in Mundabhai MBBS. And you can see me in the audience with my batchmates. And here Boman Irani and Dr. Lele interacting. He was not only just known for his academic excellence and lectures, but he was a very popular figure in social functions where his witty lectures and shairi were very much appreciated. And when forced by students to come on the dance floor, he also enjoyed dancing. He was a complete man, as they say in Raymond's advertisements. And my mother, late Dr. Sunita Lele, was his sahacharani, ardhangini, and a life partner in every respect. And I remember that she went with my father to every conference of API and nuclear medicine, whether it was India and abroad. And that was the time I got a lesson how to balance your professional life and private life. Because Dr. Lele's birthday is on 16th January and mine on 26th January. And very often, if the dates clashed, we had to celebrate our birthday before or after the conference. And my mom has been there for us as an excellent mother model, which I try to emulate. And we have been blessed that though my mom passed away early, Dr. Lele is still with us at the age of 94. And here is the picture with his grandchildren and his great-granddaughter, and of course, all of us with our spouses. We celebrated his 80th birthday, where we could call most of his colleagues and students. And we also celebrated his 90th birthday, where we had his little great-granddaughter interact with him.
Thank you, madam, for this nice introduction of this Lele sir, and what a huge personality he is. And now let's see the message what he has given for today's our oration.
I am very happy to have just celebrated my 94th birthday on 16 January. I thank God for giving me so many productive years of my life and a caring family. It is a privilege to have an oration started in my name by AACCI since last year. I am happy to have one of my favorite academicians, Dr. Padmabhushan, as the chief guest today. The guest of honor, Dr. Uday Bodhankar, is the son-in-law of my very good friend, late Vasantrao Sathe. I am looking forward to hearing the oration lecture delivered by General Madhuri Kanitkar. We are all very proud of our Indian Army, and it will be wonderful to hear about the war against COVID.
Thank you, sir. And luckily, he is also present in the audience today. Is he?
We can tell him afterwards in the end.
Okay. So he will definitely join in the end. So let's move forward. So now it's time to introduce our guest of honor.
Yeah. So Samir bhai, please share the slide. So it's my honor and privilege to introduce guest of honor, Dr. Uday Bodhankar sir. Dr. Uday Bodhankar sir is the youngest president of Central IAP. He became president at the age of 36. Along with that, he is associated with many international NGOs and organizations. He is the executive director of ComHead UK, deputy chairperson of CDH UK. Along with that, he is associated with so many organizations that if I talk all the biodata which is visible on the screen, it will take half an hour. But I welcome Dr. Uday Bodhankar sir. Uday Bodhankar sir's main interest is social pediatrics, neonatology, and immunization. The most important thing is he is the fellow IAP, fellow NNF, and FRCPH from London also. So we welcome Dr. Uday Bodhankar sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Karia, for that introduction. Can you make me the course, because I want to share my slides.
Uday, I have to add some comments for you, please.
Yeah, please.
Before you start.
Swati Suniti is here to welcome. Suniti.
Okay. Hi, Suniti. Welcome. Uday and I know each other for the last 40 years, having worked in Indian Academy of Pediatrics and also in the International Pediatric Association. He has achieved international honors on very many forums and have great admiration for the continuous philanthropic work which he has been doing. But most of all, I'm inspired by his book, Timirakadun Udayakade, which he wrote after his near miss death experience, which is really an inspiring one. Today is his birthday, and I thank Suniti for sparing him still, and you also both coming on the platform. And after the program is over, Dr. R.G. Patil from Nagpur, AACCI in charge, has organized to deliver the cake and the flowers to you. So please celebrate your birthday afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samir, now you can start Uday's PPT.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Swati. With me, Suniti Bodhankar joined to pay our regard to most respected uncle, I will call, Padmabhushan, Dr. R.D. Lele sir, who is known to me since 1960. I will share my slide. Pay my regard to Dr. Lele sir. Because
on behalf of the AACCI, we all give many happy returns of the day.
Thank you.
And
Thank
sir,
you.
सर आपके लिए तो एक चीज मैं डेफिनेटली कहना चाहूंगा, खुद ही को कर, यू आर दी रियल पर्सन फॉर दैट वी कैन से, खुद ही को कर बुलंद उठना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से पूछे बोल तेरी अजा क्या है, एंड यू आर दी पार्ट ऑफ दैट.
Thank you, Dr. Samir, for that fine word. I will not waste my time. Pay my regard to, I'm really honored to be Yashwan, Dr. respected K. Madam, Kanishka Madam, Ramesh Kumar, Kinvadekar, all respected people who are there of the line of the for celebrating my birthday on 30th in front of my most respected man in my life, next to my father-in-law, Dr. Lele, whom I know.
Sir, your screen is not visible.
As a teacher,
Sir, just a minute. Your screen is not visible.
Uday, do you want us to share your PPT?
Oh, sorry.
Samir can share your PPT.
नहीं, me share not kela, sorry.
And I am requesting all to please make yourself mute so everybody can hear properly.
Ala?
Yeah, do double click.
Ala?
Screen आहे पण we can't see. Double click कर.
कशावरती double आता?
No, we can't see.
अच्छा, why?
So I think Uday, for the keeping our time schedule,
Okay.
can Samir start putting your PPT, please?
Yeah, I think Samir has got both the clip.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So you can just stop yourself.
Yeah.
Stop sharing. Yeah.
कारण माझ्याकडे मी sharing झालं माहिती.
Don't worry, Samir will start the PPT. You
Okay.
can.
In the meantime, I pay my regard because I know Dr. Lele sir since 1960 when he was the professor head of the medicine here in Government Medical College Nagpur.
Yeah, your PPT has started.
Yeah. So I know him as a teacher, as a education, as a researcher, and all these things. Next slide, please. As I told you that he was in Nagpur Medical College as professor head of the medicine when my sister Nirmala was down with portal hypertension and cirrhosis, and Dr. Lele sir was so kind enough, being such a high legendary person. He even visited Swati Yashwan, my house in Mahal, which we were a very low socioeconomic, but still he visited, and then he gave reference to Dr. A.K. Basu in Calcutta for further intervention. Unfortunately, my sister died in June 1972, and I got admission in 72 in medical. That was the turning point of my life. Next, please. In addition, next slide. This is my parent who are no more, my in-law, and my sister who was my inspiration for writing that book on Timirakadun Udayakade, which was penned by everybody and which was released by Amitabh Bachchan and Mohanji Bhagwat. Next. I think Dr. Lele sir was kind enough today in his speech mentioned about my father-in-law, who for him he was a physician, advisor, family member, and whatnot. He was all in one for him. Whenever he used to have any ailment, he was the first person to be contacted, whether going for election, whether contacting Honorable Indira Gandhi, anybody. So I pay regard to you, sir, for keeping my father-in-law and all our family well. Next, please. This was the book which was India to be a global for which was written by my father-in-law, Vasant Sate, and released by Manmohan Singh. There is a chapter, Dr. Lele sir, introduction here. Next one. I think let me recollect my late as RMO, which Swati, I work under him in Jaslong, 1978. After finishing my MBBS, 77. Many of the people you don't know, and I know he was so strict. Uday, you have to walk. I used to take lift. He said no lift. We both used to walk to 10th floor. You can imagine at that time I was 24, but he was 60 plus. But his energy, my salute to him, sir. Next. And this is what I will not go here. I describe him as a doctor, as a philosopher, as a researcher, good human being. Next, please. And in next slide. And this is what in short I can say about him, which is not, he is a rational, he is a doyen of nuclear medicine, he is a legendary, and 3P describe him, Padmabhushan, pioneer nuclear medicine, and physician of wonderful. After that, I think we'll go to my presentation of COVID. Before that, I would like to pay my regards to Dr. Mudula Kanitkar madam, because Swati said one sentence I will say. I know Dr. Kanitkar madam when she was the dean of BJ Medical College, and I, along with Dr. Padke madam, was invited for the AACCI seminar. My salute to madam. Congratulations for getting highest medal PVSM on 26 January 22. We salute you. Madam, I will describe you in 2 words. My parents and teacher never considered gender an obstacle to achieve dreams. That is what you have said. My parents taught me, and my 2 sisters, nothing is impossible. And your message, and in 2 lines, I will say, because there is time limit. You have said you do not need to be like a man. You are able and capable as a woman. So go out with courage, confidence, and cheer every time and any time. And your mantra you are given is individual brilliance has to be supported by collective competence. Also focus, balance, and time management are crucial. Yeah, I think this is it. I know you were born on 15 October 1960 in Maharashtra, in Dharwad, Karnataka. The rest of the thing, Dr. Swati Vai. With this, I salute to Kanirka madam on this day, Lele sir, Padke madam, Yashan bhai, and all family and all the members of the AACCI. Now coming to my presentation, which is 2 minutes, COVID-19 issues of next please. You all know that COVID-19 has caused disabled people are impacted more than others due to attitudinal, environmental, individual barriers that are reproduced in the COVID-19. Women and girls were the most infected in this era. Next. There are only 5 slides. Corona has affected disabled people in many areas, because Swati asked me, because I am the executive director of Commonwealth Ocean Parliament, in health and well-being, care and support, livelihood, vulnerability of disease, mental health, access to information, education, and increased domestic abuse. Next, please. And also well-being, it has got greater impact on disabled people in terms of well-being, access to groceries, and their health, in terms of 70% and 43%. Next, please. And you will be surprised that this is from the UK. For every one non-disabled woman who dies, there were 11 disabled women who died. This is from the UK, this recent one. And for every one non-disabled man who died, 6.57. So this is very take-home message, very serious, that they were not accessible, affordable, approachable for the disabled people. Next, please. And also impact on education was disabled students often miss or own remote teaching by computer, phone, and did not hear IT. And lastly, inclusive education was directly impacted by absence or illness in UK survey. This is what I think you have to equitable, accessible, approachable, affordable to all the disabled. Next, please. And then here I would like to play. I don't know. I will have to make me quote. I will have to. There is a video, only half minute, which I would like to play. Make me host. Yeah, it is a China girl. Can you see this?
No, we can't.
Yeah,
We can't.
you can't. Why?
We can hear.
Uday, can I make a suggestion? Please
Yeah.
share your video with Sameer, and in the end, we will play the video.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Sameer, Dr. Sandeep, Yashwant, Sharmil, everybody.
Thank you, Uday, for that wonderful speech. We really wanted you to give the impact of COVID on disabled and specially
I know.
challenged.
There was
Thank
5
you.
minutes. Thank you for giving me opportunity in front of my boss. Thank you.
Thank you, Uday. Now we'll go to the next part of our program. Sameer?
So before the chief guest will be introduced by my companion Dr. Sandeep Kavade. उनके लिए मैं एक ही चीज कहूंगा. The best teacher teaches not from the book but from the heart and remain in the heart of the student. And our chief guest is one of the such a huge teacher to them. Still our Swati Baba madam remember her. Yeah, Sandeep.
Thank you, sir. It is my huge privilege to introduce our chief guest for today, Dr. Mrudula Phadke ma'am. Her detailed CV itself will take a separate session, and for the interested, it has been uploaded on the AACCI website. As present, ma'am is the Senior Advisor, NRHM at UNICEF. She is the former Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. She is the former Director Medical Education and Research with Government of Maharashtra. She was the Dean and Professor of Pediatrics at BJ Medical College, Pune. She is a recipient of more than 20 gold medals, prizes, and President of India's medal. She has over 200 publications in national and international journals. Last year, she received the IAP Lifetime Achievement Award, which is the highest honor from IAP. She is an illustrious administrator, a great teacher to a whole generation of pediatricians and doctors, and an inspiration to all of us. I welcome ma'am to share her thoughts to the August gathering. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would just like to make some introductory comment. Thank you, Sandeep, for that formal introduction. Dr. Mrudula Phadke has been my mentor. She was HOD Pediatrics in Sassoon Hospital, BJ, where I worked with her for 2 years as Professor of Pediatrics. And in addition to learning academics, she taught me many people skills and administrative tips, which were very useful to me during my presidentship of IAP, and they also helped me in my running of AACCI today. She has continued to be my mentor and a very close friend for the last many years. And one thing we should learn from her is her humility. She has a biodata of 40 pages, and most people who achieve something are very happy to put all that in a CV slide. And Mrudula just refuses to do that. She only puts her designation. The last 3 were added by us on our insistence. So humility is something, and being down to earth when she has won so many accolades is something we really need to learn from Mrudula. Today, the subject of the oration being war on COVID, I had requested Dr. Uday Bodhankar to speak on the impact of COVID on specially challenged. And I thought that so much research publications are coming out every day on COVID. But Dr. Mrudula has been a senior pediatrician, an administrator, a dean, a vice chancellor, and now working with UNICEF and NRHM. So I requested her, please share her personal opinion, her personal experiences of the impact of COVID on children, adolescents, and women. And I'm very happy she has agreed to this request because we can learn so much from her personal experience and pearls of wisdom. Thank you, Mrudula. You can start her video, Samir.
Yeah. Thanks, madam. Madam is there. So we can.
Mrudula, you're there?
Okay, so let's start with her video.
Madam is there.
Most respected and revered dignitaries on the dais, Padmabhushan Professor Dr. R.D. Lele, Lieutenant General Vice Chancellor Dr. Madhuri Kanetkar, Executive Director ComHead Dr. Uday Bodhankar, Executive Director, AACCI, Dr. Swati Bhave, Vice President, Yashwant Bhave, Dr. Vikram, Secretary Sharmila, Madhumati, Anil, all the members of Professor Dr. Lele's family, and very distinguished, worthy baby gets. नमस्कार. आपण लेले सरांच्या कार्यक्रमाला आलेले आहोत आणि म्हणून सुरुवात मी मराठीतून करते. आईवडिलांच्या नंतर पाय धरावेत अशी जी काही व्यक्तिमत्व आहेत त्याच्यात पाय धरण्याजोगे असे लेले सर सर्वप्रथम आहेत आणि ते आपले सगळ्यांचे लेले सर आहेत. त्यांचं वर्णन करायचं झालं तर 1970मधल्या दशकातले कवी बाब बोरकर यांच्या मी कवितेने करते. कविता अशी आहे. देखणी ती पाऊलेजी, देखणी ती पाऊलेजी, ध्यास पंथे चालती, वाळवंटात सुद्धा स्वस्ति पद्मे रेखिती. Thereby meaning that amidst all adversities, Dr. Lele has been the torch bearer of obviously everything that is medical knowledge and medical wisdom. I wish to tell two stories of Professor Dr. Lele which have really touched my brain and also my heart. The first story I feel is to tell you the astute most clinical opinion and clinical knowledge of Dr. Lele. He has been a giant clinician, and that was exemplified once when at the JJ hospital he was sitting in his clinic and a government officer went for getting examined. He had backache and all the junior residents had seen him, and obviously they said that this is all postural because he has to do a sedentary job, sitting job on the desk. But Dr. Lele saw him, and then after about 5-10 minutes, there were no investigative modalities then. So he had to make a clinical diagnosis. And Dr. Lele said the patient has TB of the spine with a psoas abscess. And all the residents were taken aback. What was this all about? And it was that when the patient was entering Dr. Lele sir's cabin, Dr. Lele had seen that he had a small limp and he was keeping his hip a little tight. And that gave him a clue that there is a psoas abscess, and the psoas abscess has come from the vertebral spine where he's got tuberculosis. And he made a diagnosis, a fantastic diagnosis then. Patient was put on anti-TB treatment and the patient recovered. So this is what Lele sir as a clinician is to me. And the second point that I wish to make is a little bit about his communicative skills and to make everyone feel very, very happy and very pleased. Lele sir's family and our family have been family friends for more than 4 or 5 decades. And one day, as Lele sir was entering the lift, my mother and Dr. Nilima Kshirsagar, who had just become the dean of the prestigious KEM hospital, my sister and myself, we were getting into the lift. And Lele sir said, "Mrs. Bapat, I think your name should be written in Guinness World Book of Records." So my mummy was absolutely astonished. She didn't know what he is saying and she was totally floored. So then Lele sir continued and he said, "You are probably the only mother whose both daughters have become deans of 2 important colleges in Maharashtra." And that's what I think my mother's smile on her face and her pride knew no bounds. I still remember her face very vividly, and I think that's what Lele sir meant to her. He had such a pleasant mannerism and a way he has to please everyone, young and old, big and small alike. I will never forget these 2 episodes, sir, wherein you have touched my life. Dr. Lele sir has been a very good father, a very good father-in-law, a wonderful husband, and now nice, charming grandfather to all his grandchildren. To put it in Swati's words, Swati as a daughter has inherited a lot from Lele sir, and she always says that I learned the science of medicine from Lele sir, and possibly my mother taught me the art of medicine, the humanity, and also the emotional quotient. And that was exemplified when Swati was in Nagpur Medical College. Well, she was an adolescent, and Lele sir was the head of the Department of Medicine, and they were living in government quarters. And their maid servant suddenly had got severe, I should say, she had a miscarriage and she was bleeding profusely. Swati's mother saw that, and Swati, along with her mother told Swati to lift the girl. They both lifted this maid servant and they took her to the casualty. There Dr. Lele was, and along with an obstetrician, they both brought that lady out of shock, and the lady survived. I think Swati learned everything, that how she should become a doctor, the science and art of medicine, and the seeds of becoming a doctor were sowed in Swati's mind then. And today, as an adolescent, she saw so much then, and now she is the head of adolescent medicine in so many ways in the IAP. Swati has been a torchbearer of IAP in many ways, right from her presidential days to every field of pediatrics. She has done so well. And so we are very happy that we are having a wonderful Dr. Lele's oration organized by Dr. Swati Lele and Lele sir's family. I'm supposed to say a few words on what we are going to see in COVID times. Today's oration is on war on COVID. And I'm thinking that I should give my perspective on COVID in the sense what COVID meant to me and what COVID meant to women and children. And I will take you just 2 years ago. COVID began and none of us, no women, could meet their grandchildren. No grandmas could visit their children, neither could they see the grandchildren. And therefore, all grandmothers became absolute experts in WhatsApp video calls. That was the need of the time then. So grandmothers became wiser, and these 60 and 70-year-old women became absolutely savvy on their mobiles, and WhatsApp started functioning very well on their mobiles. A little professional women became Zoom zombies. So everybody, maybe Ishani or maybe Lexi or maybe Swati, all of them became absolute Zoom zombies. Some of them went ahead. They started on Cisco WebEx. Many of them went on to Google Meet, Google Teams, and so on and so forth. And they had their, digital savviness increased maybe multiple times. Some women were even smarter. They started polywork, and they were doing their housework and were on Zoom calls for hours and hours from the house. And many of them, very, very highly tech savvy and IT professional young women, well, they not only did all this, but they were thinking ahead, and they thought, what is the role of metaverse for them? And they not only did that, but they were thinking of artificial intelligence. They were thinking of augmented reality and all such platforms. And that was what was the plight of women. Maybe in metropolitan cities, maybe in many major areas in India, and obviously world over. So in the COVID lockdown, women progressed in this way. And the progress was so much that finally they said, oh, we need to now digitally detox ourselves. And so came mindfulness, followed by bitfulness, and so on and so forth. So this was the progress of women on one side of COVID. But I'm going to draw your attention not to the Ishanis and not to the Lexis of these big cities, but I'm taking you straight to one Pallavi and Prabha from Nandurbar and from Osmanabad, 2 districts of Maharashtra. And let's see what is the plight of this Pallavi. Pallavi is an adolescent girl from Nandurbar, and Prabha is a similar one from Bid. And what did we see? Pallavi's father lost his job. He came back home. There was no money at home. Lockdown was intense. He did not have an Android to give it to his daughter. The schools had closed. Getting an internet connectivity was a difficulty and there was no Android. So school closures means no learning. Midday meals were all stopped. So all government schemes had stopped and there was no midday meal. So it so happened that our Prabha and our Pallavi, both of them were sitting at home and they could not do any schooling. What did the fathers think? They thought, oh, good. Now you need to have only 50 guests to be called for marriage. And in 50 guests, a marriage is done. So it's a systemicam. And so Pallavi and Prabha both got married at their ages of 15. What went further? A study by the Department of Women and Child, Government of Maharashtra, has shown that in COVID times, the number of child marriages increased by 78%. So you can imagine what is happening to women and children in Maharashtra, and the same could be the scenario all over the country. Now, as we progressed in this, a wonderful study in BMJ published by Purnima Menon from Delhi, it showed that in COVID times, the food insecurity has increased from 20% to 80%. So 80% of the population is becoming insecure on food, and that is what is going to result in the collateral damage. So I wish to draw your attention. My perspective is COVID on one side. Well, we are doing well in terms of vaccine, but let us see the collateral damage of COVID on all of us. And there lies the factor. The most important collateral damage is the nutrition. Effect of nutrition on COVID is enormous. And UNICEF's chief, Henrietta Fore, has said that, well, probably wasting in children is going to increase by 14%. So what aspects of nutrition are we going to see? We are going to see all the three facets of nutrition increasing, and what we mean by triple burden on nutrition. The first burden is undernutrition with all its subjoins. That is, undernutrition will cover up stunting, short children, wasting, very thin children, and underweight children, that is less in weight for age. So all these are going to increase. So we realize that undernutrition is going to increase in COVID times. Now that's not all. We think at the same time, we realize that obesity is also going to increase. So along with undernutrition, along with underweight, we are going to see children who are going to become obese, and it has been obviously seen. And do you know that obese adults and obese children do badly if they get COVID? And this was shown in one of the studies, and they thought that every unit rise in the BMI, in our body mass index, they found that every unit rise in the BMI, and we realized that there is a 10% increase in hospital admissions and ICU admissions. Now also imagine a very low BMI is equally bad. And we also found out in a study done in 9 medical colleges, government medical colleges, it was seen that if you have a very low BMI, means if you're very thin, then also your chances of getting severe COVID and getting admitted to ICU increases. So friends, the message that I wish to give is look at nutrition. We are not against Zomatos, we are not against Domino's, we are not against all this, but a dietary control and a perfect food is very, very, very necessary. But then let's come back to our Prabha and let's come back to Pallavi. Pallavi and Prabha have got married in COVID times. They are 15 years of age. And what do I say? They did not get green vegetables because they have come to their in-laws. Food may be scarce, supply chain has been disrupted, and enough green vegetables are not available. We are not getting iron and folic acid tablets in government programs. All the government programs of iron, folic acid, the Anemia Mukta Bharat, the IYCF, IYCN, they've all come down by 30% because of the lockdown. And so our 2 girls, the adolescent married girls, did not get any of these supplies. And because they did not get folic acid, they could, when they become pregnant, they could develop neural tube defects. And here I wish to quote a study, an RBSK study the Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram of the government of Maharashtra, studied 21 lakhs of children. They screened and they found out that in pre-COVID times, they had a certain amount of neural tube defects children, say 100. Then it was seen that in COVID times, after a year, the number of children with NTD, neural tube defects born, has increased 4 times. So imagine the plight of women, that we are not going to have children who are going to be born without neural tube defects if we do not supplement folic acid and if we do not supplement vitamin B12 and all such things. So this is what is likely to happen. And now on the top of it, if Prabha and if Pallavi conceive, what happens? Well, in pregnancy, lots of things can happen. We should first remember that vaccine in pregnancy is very, very, very important. And what do we know about it? That vaccine is important not only for frontline workers, not only for health workers, for all age people, but we have now been successful in giving vaccine to even our 15 to 18-year-old children. But somehow, vaccine to be given in pregnancy, the COVID-19 vaccine to be given in pregnancy, is probably, it has not caught the attention of many women, and women are not coming ahead. This vaccine in pregnancy is very safe, but only 10% of the pregnant women have taken the COVID-19 vaccine. That means, what do we realize? The 90% women have not taken the vaccine. And if such a woman comes up to term and she's going to deliver and unfortunately gets COVID, what do we see? A beautiful paper in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association 2021, says that when they studied around 70,000 women, they found that if they had COVID little prior to delivery, then the chances of complications in the mother increased 22 times. So the death in pregnant women, the complications of pregnancy increased. And not only that, women produce preterm deliveries, when women produce low birth weight deliveries, and this incidence increased 2 times. This is not only the study from JAMA, but our own study from Nair Hospital done by Dr. Malik also showed similar things. She studied 925 women who came to deliver at the Nair Hospital in COVID times, and also found that the incidence of preterm labor, premature babies, and low birth weight babies has increased in COVID times. So do we now realize the importance of what nutrition is doing? And such a girl like Prabha and Pallavi, already undernourished, already underweight, not vaccinated, and will produce a baby who is less than 2.5 kilos, we can understand that this intergenerational cycle is continuing and is going to probably worsen the situation. To my mind, this is the significance of COVID-19 on women and children. On one side, we find digital expertise increasing in leaps and bounds. On one side, we have the Lexis and Ishitas who are doing so well. But on the other side, we have the folk in the villages who have not got access to the digital media, who are unable to go to school, and who probably may deliver such children. Now, if a child is born, we have also to remember that such children are to be given proper breastfeeding as per all the guidelines. So if a mother has delivered a baby and the mother has got COVID, but she is not ill, she is slightly maybe feverish or maybe little symptomatic, but then she should remember that breastfeeding is the rule. She must breastfeed the baby, start feeding in the first hour of life and continue to do so. We saw even on TV that a COVID positive mother delivering, the baby was wished away from the mother and no breastfeeding was given. So a mother who has COVID positive must safely breastfeed the baby. She must touch the baby. Well, only here the social distancing is not to be maintained. She must give kangaroo mother care, and such a baby, if fed on the breast by the mother, is going to be much better and much less disadvantageous. And so we encourage it strongly. One message that I wish to give. So we know that if the mother is in the intensive care unit and she has COVID, then some other donor milks can be thought of, but otherwise breastfeeding is the rule, and all women who have delivered in COVID times and non-COVID times have to follow it. So that's one thing that we saw, that the breastfeeding had reduced considerably, and therefore I wish to harp on this. Good IYCF practices, good breastfeeding techniques, full breastfeeding for 6 months of life, and then proper complementary feeding with 4 food groups, 4 colors, 4 times a day in a mother and baby, that we have to remember has to be persuaded by all of us. So I have this to add, and then a word on school opening. This is my personal opinion, but opening of the schools must be definitely in consonance with other openings. That means if you open restaurants, if you open malls, if private coaching classes are going on, then, well, the schools also follow it. Schools have to follow it. So it would be important to vaccinate the grandparents in the house, the parents in the house, but children must be allowed to go to school. And now we have vaccine for 15 to 18-year-olds. So vaccination must be done, but schools must be opened in consonance with opening of the other activities, because COVID-19 is, by and large, children do not suffer heavily by the disease. It is mild in children, though rarely there could be MIS-C, that is multiple organ involvement, multiple inflammatory syndrome of children, but that is by and large rare, and therefore we have to see that schools open well and the children go to school. So in short, if I have to say my perspective on COVID-19 and children, we have to remember that, friends, this intellectually beautiful audience knows how to bridge the digital divide, the social and economic divide, which has increased in COVID times. And this bridging should be done with scientific bravery and benevolence. So if I have to say in one sentence, I'll say it again in a poem and conclude my speech thanking all of you. Mangalanni gandhalele sundaranche sohale, Mangalanni gandhalele sundaranche sohale, Suswabhave gauyate vikramanche godave. Suswabhave gauyate vikramanche godave. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, madam, for such a lucid and nice speech about what the COVID impacted on our socialization, our digitalization, and overall community effect. So, any comments, Swati madam, want to?
Yeah, Mrudula, it was a mesmerizing speech as usual. And I'm so glad I asked you to give your personal perspective. This will not come from any book or any publication. And the perspective you gave us is wonderful. I'm getting a lot of messages for your video, and I'm sure the same will happen for Madhuri's video. So I just want to inform everybody, this is being live streamed on Facebook AACCI, and it will be there. So you can hear all of them again after the program is over or anytime you want. Thank you, Mrudula. Sorry for the glitch, but we are so glad you are back on the screen.
नमस्कार स्वाती आणि लेले सरांना प्रणाम.
Thank you, madam. Can we move ahead?
Yes, Samir.
So now it's time to introduce our respected orator. Before Swati madam introduce her, I will congratulate madam for receiving that Param Visishta Seva medal, one of the highest medal for your excellent services for our community. Thank you, madam, for being a orator of our today's program. Yes, Swati madam, over to you.
Yeah, and next slide. We are so privileged to have a star speaker, a fantastic, unique woman as the orator for Dr. Lele's second oration. If you just Google Madhuri, you will see a plethora of her images. Her interviews in many TV channels, her publications, interviews in magazines, and she's on the famous magazine covers. So I'm not going to say all this again because it is there for public domain. Next. I know Madhuri for the last 30 years, we being fellow IIP academicians, and both of us love dancing. And in those years when women are a little conservative, in all IIP conferences, Madhuri and I would be the first on the floor to pull all the other women to start enjoying dancing in our social functions. So we have a connection from ages back. And I know how much Madhuri cares for her family. Being in such a high position, it is not easy to balance home and career. But she has been a superwoman, a super mom, and recently she has become a grandmother. And in many of her interviews, she has often shared how tough it has been to stay together in the same city because of the high profile post of both her and her spouse, Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar, and how they both coped up. And we are so happy that Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar is also available on the Zoom platform today, and we are going to have a very special function with him. Next. So, what I'm sharing today is AACCI's everlasting gratitude to Madhuri for having given us the map of the defense services. All of you know that she was wearing two hats. She was an army officer herself and the spouse of Rajiv. So she was very active and very popular in the Defense Services Wives Association. And she was very close to the late Madhulika Rawat. So when Madhulika Rawat suggested that we should have some programs on parenting and teenagers in the defense services families, Madhuri was very kind enough to refer AACCI's name because I have been sharing AACCI's work over last many years with Madhuri. And she organized a virtual meeting where the senior staff, the defense services wives, and late Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, AACCI was given a chance and I made a presentation of what AACCI has been doing and my plans, what we can do in the parenting programs and teenage programs for the services, families. And I still will always treasure, and it's in my memory, the gracious interaction with late Madhulika Rawat ma'am. And she really appreciated AACCI's work and she accepted the commendation by Madhuri. And I'm very happy to inform you that last year, from the month of April to November, AACCI closely worked with the then Vice Admiral's wife, Mrs. Kala Hari Kumar, and we did a series of programs for the Western Naval Command officers' wives, more than 750 parents, 450 children, and over 200 teachers from the various naval schools in the Western region attended our program. And now Mr. Harikumar has become the chief of naval staff and Mrs. Kala Hari Kumar has shifted to Delhi. And she has again invited AACCI to now work in the northern western Nava region. And we are going to start this program on 6th. So Madhuri, we are very, very grateful for having given us this opportunity. We are so proud of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and to do something for the wives and the families is something which we'll always treasure. Next. And now, after a very successful retirement and getting the PVSM, you are now holding the very prestigious MUHS Vice Chancellor. And I'm sure, like you have done in all your assignments, you will leave your mark and change the face of MUHS. Thank you so much. Samir, you can now put the PPT for Madhuri. Madhuri, we look forward to another mesmerizing oration from you. As usual, you're a fantastic orator, and we all would love to know what the Indian Army and you have been doing. You were sharing with me the number of meetings you had with the PMO office and the night hours you spend in planning the Army response. And we'll all be very happy to hear all this from you. Over to you, Madhuri.
Madam, we all, on behalf of AACCI, we salute you all for your excellent achievement and your work.
Salute.
Thank you so much. Can I start sharing my screen?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
My screen is visible? Yes. At the outset, I would like to thank AACCI for selecting me to deliver this oration today. And I'm really honored and humbled that on the occasion of the Doyen, Dr. R.D. Lele, I mean, I get to address you all who have all been pioneers, both in the field of medicine, in the field of pediatrics, adolescent care. So to all the respected senior people, and a special honor for me that the chief guest is my role model, Dr. Mrudula Phadke, and Dr. Uday Bodhankar is the chief of guest who's been such a mentor to us. So with so many of you seniors there, I feel really honored to be talking about this talk on, and when I was given the opportunity to pick a topic, I thought to make it relevant and what is meaningful, what is happening. We are all at war against COVID. I chose this topic. So I begin with a salute to the Padmabhushan Dr. R.D. Lele, it's been mesmerizing to hear about his contribution to the path that he has put us all onto. And I hope for generations to come, we will all tread on that and take medicine to the next level. So I'd like to start with a quote by Haruki Murakami, who said, "And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what the storm is all about." And you will all agree with me, COVID has been just this incident. So when I was asked to talk about this incident, I wondered for this August gathering, and when I heard that there are more than 500 people, how do I really approach it? And I thought I'll make it into a reflection of how I thought about it and reflected on it. And as a person in uniform who has been taught that the country comes first, my organization next, and me last, I will take you all through a journey which reflects on what happened, so what has been the response in these three waves, and leave you with a little thought of what next. I would like to put in a disclaimer here that all these are genuinely personal views and thoughts, and there may be sometimes a variation. Please do bear with me. So what happened? 29th February 2020, the crowning glory. And there we had made headlines as the first couple to reach the Lieutenant General status. And it was a proud moment for not only being pipped by my husband and the DG AFMS, but also having an opportunity to wear the hat that he had kept away from me. And this was his very cap I wore. But within days, the next thing happened and war was declared. And this was a war against Corona. And none other than our Honorable Prime Minister hailed the country and the frontline warriors and said, "We are at war. Let's get our act together." So what happened with that? Doctors became soldiers. And here was me, a doctor and a soldier, but this was an opportunity for all doctors to become frontline warriors and soldiers. And in that, I would like to quote Martin Luther King as amended, that as suffering mounts, I realized there are two ways in which to respond: either react with bitterness or seek to transform with a creative force. I decided to follow the latter course. And I think this happened to all the healthcare workers who transformed themselves from doctors of saving lives to killers of the Corona epidemic. And we were all in a catch-22 situation, taught as we are that whenever there is disease, there are three factors: the environment, the agent, and the host. And there was so little known about COVID and all these three. It was a novel virus. We had no idea what was happening. On one hand, we were hearing situation of a cytokine storm occurring and people dying from it. We were forced to use immunosuppression. We didn't know what that would have effect on. On the other hand, it was a naive population with no immunity. We were using adjuncts with the hope of this, whether it was hydroxychloroquine, then came in the monoclonals, then came in a whole lot of indigenous substances which were tried, and there was so much to be done. We did not have any drugs. We did not have any vaccines. So we were groping in the dark against this. And this was truly a war where the potency or the capability of the enemy was only frightening, and we had very little in our arsenal. So what? I call that a thing, a journey from BC to AD. And BC, by BC, I mean before COVID, to Corona, the challenge, and to its life, which is now going to continue after the disease. So this was truly a journey. And look what this little RNA did to us. Whereas on 12th of Jan 2020, if you see, this were the global deaths due to various causes, and there's no evidence of any corona there. And within 6 months, when we looked at global deaths, it was the third largest killer after diabetes and tuberculosis. And this is what one little RNA did to us. So what was the past before this BC or before Corona? I think we were, when you take as a soldier or a commander, you take stock of the situation of what do you have. What did we have? We had a fragmented, working in silos, a medical education which was improving in quantity but lowering in quality. Everyone lamented about the skills of the graduates. Research happened in laboratories with very little translational or interaction between academia, between colleges, and the research laboratories. Public health, less said the better. The COVID really exposed the underbelly. So this was what was there in our arsenal. And we were talking of artificial intelligence, innovation, automation. And as a member of the Prime Minister's TIAC, I had thought that this was one way in which we could really go into the future. We'd had a green revolution. We'd had a white revolution. It was time for a health revolution. And the first thing that was required, that medical education, research, and public health need to be aligned. And one could drive the other. So with that background, we were aware that there was a looming catastrophe ahead. Very little known about the virus. Huge population in India depended on out-of-pocket expenses. Public infrastructure with large gaps and voids. Diagnostic infrastructure lacking. I mean, how many of us had heard of RT-PCRs and PPEs and what have you, and the viral BSL-3, BSL-2? These are now common terms. Sanitization, masks, social distancing, even children talk of it, but we did not have any of this information. The PPE, ventilators, oxygen concentrators, most of it was unheard in remote places and rural India. There was a severe shortage of trained human resource and a very little time to bring everyone at par to understand protocols, to understand these issues about the virus, about the environment, about the host. And therefore, there was doomsday predicted. The New York Times said, India is going to see a harakiri. There's going to be massive death. And the world watched with abated breath because our population was just so much and we had such poor infrastructure. What was the status of the armed forces? Normally, whenever in times of crisis, the armed forces comes up as a rescue. But here, we were more prepared for battle casualties and crisis expansion, mostly involving surgical emergencies. All our SOPs, our op preparedness was for traditional warfare. This was war with a difference. Our human resource, we didn't have an unlimited amount. A total of 7,000 doctors, dental officers, 4,000 nurses, and maybe 50,000 all paramedics combined together, already caring for a 1.5 million armed forces and 4 million dependents. In addition to that, ex-servicemen in larger cities went to empaneled hospitals, but in smaller centers, they continued to depend on our service hospital. The PPEs and projected ventilator requirements as were being worked out in the USA or the Europe calculations were just not available even with the armed forces. Now coming to myself, if I looked at a self-appraisal, it had been a tough, a learning, a beautiful journey from July 78 to March 2020. Yes, I had done well as a pediatrician. I'd gained some administrative capabilities and ensured that I'd been a lifelong learner with academic capabilities. But COVID, well, even I was as much a novice as the rest and was being entrusted with this work. However, as a pediatrician, and if I look at the milestones, where we look at changing information to knowledge, where we continuously are in this pursuit of degrees, it takes a long time to gain wisdom. And in this journey, I probably had done a little better because of the realization that education and patient care was not enough. And so along the journey, I'd done a fellowship in medical education. I'd started taking active interest in collaborative research, multi-centric research, developing a multidisciplinary research unit at our own medical college, and the view that education, research, and patient care needs to be aligned, but the seeds were already growing in my mind. So this was probably where I had a little advantage over the rest. So that with that, if I look at the first wave, what went well? The nation was ill prepared and yet did well. I mean, the world looked at us and said, India has done reasonably well in spite of, we had the lowest case fatality rate. We had, even if we said that there was underreporting, given even adding to that, our fatality rate was much lower than Europe or the developed world. We had timely lockdowns, which gave us time, and I'll come to that in a while. We went on to the mode, our leadership ensured an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Within no time, we was even exporting PPEs, ventilators, kits. We ensured that we all got together and made this possible. India launched the Digital India on a mission mode, and we couldn't have been better off, whether it is having our Arogya Setu, whether it was having the CoWIN app, whether it was telemedicine. I mean, there was innumerable, which was all an exponential rise where we really broke the ceiling and came up very well. We also used a lot of information that came in from the West, and our scientific community got together to find out that it was ventilators probably were not the answer and we need to change. So we went from an elective early ventilation, we changed protocols. Steroids came in by the time we were hit by the wave. Because of our lockdown and buying time, we got a lot of scientific knowledge and started using steroids usefully. What about the armed forces? The armed forces, it also came up with some good criteria, and we used the disaster crisis management group, which normally helps in an HADR response for country. That came together under the CDS, and we got our act together, and the medical services under the DGAFMS spun into action. And our priority was care of our own troops, because if we were at war, we could not forget that it was for the country. It could anytime turn into a war on three fronts. We had the northern borders, we had the eastern borders, and we had the COVID borders. So there were three fronts that had to be, and our troops had to be kept ensured that we did not be caught wanting on that. Care of veterans remained a priority because they continued to look up to the armed forces. And in that, we also needed to come to the support of the nation which was battling. We are part of the same. So why did India do so well? A lot of research went into it. And this was one particular paper that I worked along with CSIR and Shekhar Mande group. And something interesting came up. But of course, it was never really very highly highlighted because we didn't have enough evidence. But it's interesting to see that the more developed and hygiene status higher, the mortality was higher. And countries with lower hygiene and lower socioeconomic status, the case fatality rate was the lowest. So this was something very interesting. Were we dealing with the same hygiene hypothesis, and therefore immunity and allergies and hypersensitivity, the responses were different, and probably more research is being done, and this would be very interesting. But having said that, we gave the world a lot from our country, and we can be proud of. The country appreciated the namaste. instead of shaking hands and hugging, we went on to tell that it was better to keep a social distance with a namaste. And while everyone kind of felt that it was only N95 and PPEs, because we could not have that, we went back to a chance discussion in the Principal Scientific Advisors Committee meeting with some of the scientists that when days we did not have this, we used and rewashed our cloth mask. Something will be definitely better than nothing for an aerosol. And therefore, we decided to bring out a protocol on masks for curbing the spread of SARS-CoV-2. And this was published in and promulgated way before, when WHO said cloth is of no use. Even ICMR said it's of no use. But the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office, we brought out this. And this was one place where experience came in earlier and evidence-based medicine came in later. And later studies did show that 50% mask usage with a 50% mask efficacy was also extremely good. And thus 100 cases at the start of the month, at the end of the month with no mask use would be 31,280 and cloth mask use was 584. It was worth it, an intervention with low cost, and we gave the world cloth mask along with the namaste, and a lot of our traditional practices were found to be extremely useful in COVID. We also started realizing the value of mental health, giving support to people, and a lot of initiatives, a lot of organizations did take up, but Armed Forces Medical Services helped the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office also bringing up these simple initiatives like positive mental health in 9 steps. This was just one of the shared, but more than that, what we have to be proud of, investment put into the Department of Biotechnology ensured, and pharmaceutical industry ensured that we were producing our own vaccines, and we had Covaxin and Covishield as front runners and more in the pipeline. And today we have so many more who have gone into their phase 3 trials. We are also looking at Bharat Biotech has got the nasal vaccine clearance for phase clinical trials, and we're going to have even the mRNA and so many other component vaccines, which initial evidence has shown are excellent as boosters when the primary vaccine has been Covaxin and Covishield. It has also shown that whereas mRNA vaccine gives very high antibody levels, the antibody levels drop down and they are not as broad spectrum as our Covishield and Covaxin, and probably that is also helping. Can we have all muted, please? There are too many voices coming.
Piyush, can you please unmute everybody?
Can you please mute everybody?
DG Shield Piyush, please unmute everybody.
Please mute everybody.
Sorry, please mute everybody, Piyush.
I'll give a stop. Wait till we can have this quietened a little. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so with that, under the Department of Science and Technology, a mathematical modeling group for Indian, because there was a lot of modeling going on in Western countries, but keeping Indian scenario in mind, keeping Indian features in mind, a group of 10 people was made and constituted under the chairmanship of Dr. Vidyasagar, and I was made as part of that 10-member committee, and we used the same SAR model, then the SAIR, and for the first time in very early, we started adding the asymptomatic cases into it, and our SAIR model turned out to be extremely useful, and we could predict the exact timing and the duration of the maximum number of cases. And that at that time, we not even had our first zero survey, but we could pick up a factor of epsilon, that is how many undetected cases, and we found that it was almost to the tune of 30, and this was validated when the ICMR first zero survey came in, and for the number of cases, we found we were absolutely accurate, and this was something we were very proud of. And using the same modeling, we looked at the lockdown alternatives, that had we not had a lockdown or had we delayed the lockdown, and this was a paper we published in the IJMR, which showed that our mortality could have been so much higher. This red curve shows that had we not had a lockdown, this would have been our mortality. Whereas by putting it on, had we delayed it to May 1st or delayed it to April 1st, this was the curves that generated out of our model. And look where we actually happened. This was the actual lockdown. So the lockdown, a timely lockdown, gave us the much needed time for developing our protocols, for learning from the West, to having our PPs. And it was the first time that the bureaucracy, the government, the scientific community, all our bodies, the medical colleges, everyone came together. We ramped up testing using the ICMR and the Medical Council of India through the Board of Governors, taking quick overnight decisions. A lot of things came in handy. So what about the armed forces response in the first wave? There was a huge synergy with stakeholders. And what is the strength of the armed forces is having SOPs and guidelines. And that really helped. Strict protocols were brought in for serving personnel at every station, every military cantonment, large areas for quarantining, so that we did not push any soldier who could be a potential infected person onto the borders in the northern and the eastern region, because after going there, if they infected everyone, it is an extremely Herculean task, because you cannot de-induct them from those high altitude posts. So this was a very, very crucial, and those protocols were quickly made and ensured. We activated COVID testing labs and ramped up. We also had very few to begin with. However, had been in talks with ICMR to set up in our border areas. And this was used. So in a place like Udhampur, where I had luckily been the MG Med and had preempted and started a VRDL lab there. And therefore, within no time, we did 1 lakh tests alone in Udhampur for the entire Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. The working as in a lot of places, our military hospitals worked as state labs as well. So it was a huge synergy, and that is what was important. The armed forces helped for the transportation of medical supplies, setting up of hospitals along with DRDO, and helping quarantine facilities for civilians as well as the Vande Bharat. And we also used our own initiatives to make the first COVID-19 medical inventory, keeping the older this thing. So we had some starting points, and this was an open source made available along with IIT, IISc and JNCSAR. The armed forces worked closely, and AFMC worked with them to have a preparedness ready. We also were the MCI under Dr. Paul and our 10-member group worked very closely with the Telemedicine Society of India and the legal, and in record time that has been hailed by the world, that our telemedicine guidelines were promulgated in May, and within no time this was translated to eSanjeevani, and that became a trendsetter and a path-breaking innovation. The same thing was corroborated into the armed forces, and the own guidelines were prepared, and SEHAT, which stood for Services, E-Health Assistance and Teleconsultation. This website was rolled out under the headquarter IDS by a small team of 5 people in 3 weeks from inception to rollout. And that became a huge help for our ex-servicemen to reach out. And look at the COVID facilities that were created along with the armed forces, where quarantine facilities in 8 locations for 1,000, then ramped up to 6,000, 3,000 evacuees which came in from the Saudi, from Gulf, from various countries under Vande Bharat were all, it was a massive logistic operation where the 3 services came together, the Army, the Air Force and Navy, and in stations quarantine facilities were created for all these evacuees so that they were segregated and were taken care of. Our military hospitals became mixed COVID hospitals and opened up the doors to civilians, and additional beds of 3,000 were created across the country to beef up the national requirement. And these are some of the international outreach activities by the services, whether it was Maldives. We even brought in medical students back from Wuhan, Iran, Nepal, Kuwait, Mauritius, Comoros, Bhutan, Sri Lanka were some of the countries where our ships, airlines went and brought back our people back to our country. And this is how we ensured operational preparedness and force preservation. Like I mentioned, we had to be prepared for having a war on 3 fronts. So move of essential personnel was made by special trains and aircrafts to resume duty. And I'd like to share that I was also, my daughter was visiting from US and I was in Pune, but was airlifted when the CDS said, I need her back immediately to take charge of the COVID operations. There was a functioning in changed operational environment with efficacy. We quickly upgraded medical facilities, allotment of additional budget with enhanced emergency powers to local commanders. So there was decentralization and quick procurement. We did cost-cutting measures that quickly did a VED of vital, essential, desirable, stopped spending on some of the aspects and brought in more spending onto the, and net result, we had only 710 positive and 7 fatalities in the initial parts, which was very, very encouraging for our armed forces. We also reached out, and these were some of the initiatives. The railways wanted to had their trains ready and the armed forces was asked to, so putting SOPs in place, and within a week we ramped them up to make COVID care on wheels, and these were created in Delhi as isolation facilities at Shakur Basti and Anand Vihar terminus. But our feather on the cap was the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, 1,000-bedded COVID hospital. If you see on 22nd June, this was a small group of DRDO scientists and me working on, and this ground was a total terrain, uneven ground where a tractor and a JCB was drawn to just level it. And this was 3rd July and this was 5th July. And I think this really strengthened our confidence and our capabilities and showed the world that nothing is impossible when India comes together. And this hospital was launched in no time, and we opened up with 1,000 beds, including 250 high dependency and ICU beds with ventilators. But what could have been better? I think what really gave a problem was frequently changing protocols, because we were learning. So every second day ICMR brought in new protocols. By the time it percolated to the grassroots, new protocols came in, new medication aspects came in, new quarantine testing protocols. So it led to a lot of confusion. Something else was that healthcare workers had to care for patients and contribute to data collection. So they were really stressed out to begin with. There was a huge need for more caregivers and human resource beyond healthcare workers. And we never thought of how to bring those in under disaster crisis management. Communication was poor. It didn't reach the people. Once they got admitted, there was fear and panic, availability of resources and its distribution. And the initial phases, I remember the airlines traveling with complete 2 to 3 layers of PPEs, whereas there was not even masks available at our primary health centers. There was lack of teamwork and collaboration, which required, because we had never been prepared to work like this. And most disheartening was that data, even among scientific community, was not shared. We were working on a mathematical model, but the health department, each one worked in a silo, and we needed to get together. And these were some of the facts and figures that came out on the WHO dashboard. 31 crore people confirmed infected. I mean, this was in 10 Jan 2022. Look at this US 10 trillion of output is expected to be lost by the end of 2021. And we've definitely, there was gender-based violence, which has been brought out. and so much against adolescents and young girls. Madam Murdula Phadke has told, what about 90% of the school children who are unable to attend schools, and everyone did not have the digital medium. There were 10 million more girls at the risk of early marriage. We heard the story of the 2 young girls. So this is some of those dark facts and figures which came out. Under this came 14 Jan, and it was not just Tirgur Gya God God Bola, but we in India had reasons to cheer because we had vaccines, because not only were 83 Tejas fighters inducted by the Air Force, but we had schools were being planned for reopening, and it was decided to provide vaccines free of cost, at least to the initial. And the first people to get it were the healthcare workers, the frontline workers. And the team which had worked on the supermodel computing team also learned lesson. The initial 10-member team got dissolved. However, 3 people, Professor Vidya Sagar, Professor Manindra Agarwal of IIT Kanpur, and General Kanitkar, myself, came together, and we created the first time a Sutra model. We used the word Sutra because this was an Indian model. It had to sound like Sutra, but Sutra was an acronym, because for the first time we brought in differential equations to take care of undetected cases, the tested positive, symptomatic and asymptomatic, and the diseased approach. And this Sutra model is being hailed even today. And what did it do? Well, at that point in Feb 2021, we did do a modeling and felt that we are unlikely to have any more peaks, provided there is no novel mutation and adaptive immunity is not lost. And therefore, we recommended that we must now concentrate on case detection of symptomatic serosurveillance, but we did not really act fast enough. And genetic surveillance, we'd given this recommendation, but it took a little time for that. And vaccination priority had to be, especially we should change to giving it to communities with low seropositivity. However, this could not be implemented. And what happened was, with a bang came the tsunami. That was the second wave. The nation was taken by a surprise and shock. Health infrastructure was not adequately ramped up because we started becoming lax. The virus mutated, rapid spread with more severe disease. The Delta virus was something which we couldn't imagine. Oxygen requirement went up 20 times. Hospitalizations went up 20 times, and large numbers got infected. Antibody levels started waning. Vaccination did not take up at full pace. There was a laxity of non-pharmacological measures through Diwali festival season and New Year's, etc. And our supply chains broke down. So we were in the grip of a tsunami. There was a massive aid again requested for civilians, and even the armed forces were just not prepared because we could not take on any more. We had been stretched to our limit. So we ourselves went through denial, forming, storming, norming, performing, and all these aspects. But only thing which was good was that the nation had given vaccination to the frontline workers. And because of our rigid SOPs, protocols, and rules, regulations, and discipline, we had been able to vaccinate 96 to 99% of our troops, including few dependents. Few veterans had also been vaccinated. However, our beds were not adequate for this unexpected scale. Manpower, they had already got exhausted and had been continuously, because the moment the first word, the routine healthcare started taking shape. So no one had any leave. Oxygen supply, even the armed forces depended on states and local supply chain, which was breaking down. And in this backdrop, we were called to help a battling nation once more. And that was under those circumstances, our late General Bipin, CDS General Rawat, called and said, asked the medical branch, a small branch on an advisory capacity to him. He said, you have to take this on. This is required. And therefore, a COVID crisis committee was formed, and I was made the chairperson. And an operational plan had to let healthcare workers lead this battle. And this was one time when I had the opportunity to tell the chiefs, we are normally the shoulders behind the soldiers. Today we are the soldiers, but we cannot function without your shoulders. And all three chiefs came forward and gave full support. And therefore, within an operational room was created, and within 72 hours, various checklists were created, SOPs prepared, communication, there was SOPs for waste management, diets, security, housekeeping, traffic, everything had to be addressed with a small core team. But we roped in our dental corps, including our renowned veterinary corps, that is our veteran people. We inducted the battlefield nursing assistants, which were normal, routine soldiers who had just been trained in first aid, a small capsule of 2 days, and they were put into our COVID care hospitals. And the Army, Air Force, Navy, under the GMCG, controlled all logistics. So when the leadership was tasked to help the nation in times of crisis and steered it, we made a quick presentation of how the situation is akin to a biological war. And we have to set up more DRDO hospitals. Even if we are overwhelmed, we were ready. What happened was something unprecedented. The veterans who are normally in empaneled hospitals, the hospitals shut their doors, which were full of patients, and they came back to our service hospitals. So we had the entire ECHS coming to us. We had to ramp up oxygen beds, but they were just not falling sufficient. We were dependent on oxygen. We did not have oxygen generation plants, and these were done on a war footing. And in this backdrop, it was disheartening. So it was important for me and my team to keep the morale high, because there were continuous people were upset, bed availability, progress on admitted patients. There was lack of communications. There were delays at reception, triage, housekeeping services. The civilians, even from our DRDO run hospitals and our service hospitals, normally housekeeping is outsourced to civilians. They ran away when they saw so many deaths happening. So we had to take in everything. And I'm proud to say my team of people, of paramedics, of all the armed forces personnel, once again, came up to the challenge and worked together. And these were the headlines. And this was something which the CDS, having aware of, and that is where wisdom. He said, Madhuri, it's not enough to just be doing. The nation needs to be reassured that the armed forces has come in. Please go out and tell people not to panic. So therefore, almost every channel ran in, and amidst all day-night ops room situation, this was how we were working on this. But at the same time, we were also running programs on every channel, reassuring them that Kojit will be and we will win again. So this was, and these were some of the, whether it was roles and responsibilities, timelines, tasks, collaborative efforts. I mean, the number of this protocols, we wrote out a team of core group, but everyone, especially the then Air Force, Navy, the DGAFMS, anyone I approached who came in and we were working, it was like a single person run headed ops room. And I had only, because we were all in isolation, so it was running from the home on a webinar, and General Kanetkar was there supporting me throughout, giving the non-medical perspective when time was short to run to anyone else. And this was what COVID care came across the Kojit way. We had coordination and support from the entire integrated defense staff, the COVID hospital supported by the FMS from all three, and we set up 1,000-bedded hospitals in Delhi, Patna, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Varanasi, with over 2,000 ICU and HDU and oxygen beds. And these came up in a record time. Our doctors did no breaks, no times, no holidays, no time to get into. We ensured that they did not fall sick. And soldiers came in as combatants. More than 9,000 beds for civilians were created in service hospitals, and including all our ex-servicemen load. We brought in trials of technology. One such was DOSI, which was an innovative by some young IIT people. So these were times to, and I'm sure everyone, and we also use this. The telemedicine, which had been launched, was revamped again, and this time The Honorable Raksha Mantri launched it. And not only did we ran 8,000 consultations, taking in all our veteran doctors, but we went because the doctors from the states were all roped in for COVID care. We started a defense doctors OPD, and on a single email and WhatsApp message that I sent out to veterans, we had within 72 hours, we had 100 veteran AMC doctors who joined eSanjeevani and started running these OPDs. And there were some who saw more than 1,000 patients. The transportation of medical supplies, I think there are visuals that all of you have seen, how whether it was the Army, the Navy through their ships, and the Air Force taking tankers, bringing equipment from abroad, redistributing them. Everything was conducted as a huge logistic exercise at Palam Airport by the Indian Air Force. And all local commanders were asked to extend support in every station. And this was one time where absolutely with great humility, and this thing I would like to say that even the Defense Wives Welfare Association under Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, when I told her this is how our people are working, she just opened her purse, pulled out 10,000. She said, Madhuri, let's start an initiative. And in no time, we started sending refreshments. It really cheered up our healthcare workers because they were working without a break. Every hospital, corridors worked, closed, pipelines put in, and within a week, this is something Port Blair, where a hospital was created. Then there was the base hospital, Delhi, which was completely changed into a COVID hospital. Within a week, made 500 in care, took care of 11,249, including civilians. And with all its problems, we looked at. But when we looked at data, what is it why the armed forces could lead out? The country gave it its vaccines. We ensured everyone took the vaccine, and then we went out and gave this data to push the nation to ramp up vaccination. Because look at the first wave, where we had a mortality of 54. In the second of 51, 37 were those who are not vaccinated. Among the fully vaccinated, we had only 6 people who died, and all of them were either organ transplanted, severe pancreatitis, I mean, we knew the diagnosis, or severe obesity, diabetes, and such comorbidities. We also looked at our data for secondary attack rates. Post-vaccination, it dropped down from 20% to 4.2. So it really proved that vaccination, and he went and requested the government to really push vaccination. And this was the Sutra model, which I told you all about, again, predicted the exactly correct dates as well as the maximum this thing. And we could reassure to say the worst is going to be over, hold on. And this was used to really ramp up. But what could have been better? I think we saw that it was not that the whole country was gripped. We saw Mumbai getting hit first, but the rest of the states did not take it, did not share the experience, did not use that time to quickly ramp up their services, which would have actually could have been much better. Secondly, we still stuck to our borders of districts, states, whereas if had we probably used something like COVID care on wheels, wherever we could have mobilized across the country our resources. This national presence was, except for the armed forces, people were not ready to share resources like this. The mass migration was, I think, less said the better. It was, I think, a thing that the country cannot forget. Care of children, their nutrition, education became a huge challenge. And then, because protocols were not followed, came the wave of black fungus. I'm again proud to say that none of our patients in the armed forces treated in our armed forces hospital came down with a black fungus. So it really shows that it was the quality of care that was important, and we need to get to this across the country. And with that backdrop, now we were at the 3rd Omicron wave. So this was first reported from South Africa, Europe, UK, again taken by storm. It showed a huge immune escape, a loss of efficacy of the vaccine, a rapid spread, winter and festivals, elections, but here we were much better prepared. We had our INSACOG data, and now the Sutra team, our trio, was joined by Dr. Pramod from Tishti, the Translational Health Institute, the DBT, and the IGIB, Dr. Agarwal, who was heading the INSACOG consortium. So we were getting in quick inputs, and we could incorporate it and actually go around giving advice both at the national level as well at the state level, but it was purely on a voluntary basis because we were not any government-run group. It was just science being used, and purely for the love of science, we five worked together. We had an excellent testing capability, good vaccine coverage, administration was well prepared, and though there was tempting to have lockdowns, we could go back with evidence, and including the state of Maharashtra, we made a presentation to the government by the Sutra team, and lockdowns were avoided. There was less panic, and the virus seems to be affecting mostly the upper tract, and we are all, I think, extremely happy that we've done it quite right. And again, the Sutra model could predict in the first week of Jan itself, we could give what was happening to Mumbai, the plot, and we could give this presentation, and sure enough, by 14 Jan, because we had predicted that 14th or 15th we'd peak, and on 14 we could already see the wave starting to come down. And the same thing was told for Delhi and for the country, and it is going exactly as per the Sutra model. Then at the University of Health Sciences, we thought that it is time that academia and public health, so instead of remaining in silos of medical education department and health, we reached out to DMER, we reached out to the government, and with the help of local administration, the district collector of Nasik joined hand, and we've taken under, and this Dr. Lele would be very happy to, this is one research which is going on, wherein we have 5, the Unani Medical College of Malegaon, the Homeopathy College, the Ayurved College, the Allopathy College, the university, the district administration, the district health authorities of Malegaon have all joined hand. Net result, in 6 days, we have collected almost 3,000 samples before Omicron could hit Malegaon, to look at baseline, to look at what are the indigenous methods adopted by the people. So we are studying socio-demographic, local, whether it was the Unani Kada, whether it was, there was a whole lot of things which have come to light, and we look forward to being able, and we will follow it up 3 months later to see what is happening in the Indian population, and we are going to look at cell-mediated immunity as well, and memory, and we hope we can come out with this. So this is something. So in this backdrop, I would like to conclude by saying, what next? Because in a reflection, you must do an analysis and suggestions for way forward. So I did a SWOT analysis. What were our strengths? That India had the capability of political leaders, bureaucrats, scientists working together and can create magic. The armed forces is there for every challenge, will continue to be part of this nation's pride. And then when the nation comes together, it works like magic, and it does so every time there's a crisis. What is our weakness? Our medical education and health continue to work under 2 various different things at state. Health is a state subject, so center and state, we need better synergy. This is an opportunity. The NDMA, the National Defense Management Association, does not have a health wing. They need to start along with local health authorities to have what, like we have in the armed forces. We've given a proposal to them to have mobile hospital units along with medical colleges and district authorities, so that we can be at par, and the AFMS is not the only one who needs to do that. So we need to have capacity building. We've documented the lessons learned. We need to make these SOPs and institutionalize them before we forget. And the challenges ahead are that we definitely need better synergy, expertise needed in sharing of data, and we need to cut out red tape and delays in implementation of plans. There were a number of times we knew what was happening, what was coming in, but a large country, a huge population needs faster implementation. This is an opportunity for enhancement, and the government has, our Honorable Prime Minister has announced the Digital Health Mission. It is time not just for vision and belief, but for action. Telemedicine and electronic health records is the future. The sooner we get onto it, the better. Medical education needs to come out of its silos and needs to have more skills beyond degrees. We need to improve CBRN training. I think this is something, it is no more the domain of the armed forces. This has to be part of, because CBRN is chemical, biological, radiation, nuclear. And in that, B is purely medical. And I think we need to be prepared for this. We have to have better paramedical training. Society's health education is paramount, and the digital medium needs to be leveraged to reach even the remotest of villages. And that is, and remotest of colleges, because we need to respond, not keep reacting. And I'm proud to say that keeping the lessons learned, we at the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, the entire team, every officer, every person, we've included all the deans of all the faculties, and have brought out a vision document over the next 4 years. And we hope to achieve all the targets, because this vision roadmap has deliverables and implementable roadmaps. Because this is what, are we really prepared? This is, I quote a book in 1999, written by 2 Chinese colonels, said, waging a war on an advisory with methods so covert at first and seemingly so benign that the party being attacked does not realize it's being attacked. Were we dealing with something like this in COVID? Well, COVID-19, the final word is not yet out. In hushed tones and this thing, we keep wondering. The scientific evidence is not there to prove it, but definitely there were suspicious delays in reporting, limited access to WHO investigation. Several reports from scientists in media of an engineered virus appeared to have been whereas adverse this thing, some of the country seemed to have been well prepared to deal with the calamity. Even today, the hospital cannot come up within days unless you have infrastructure there. How did they already have the PPEs, the vaccines, the drugs? How come the mortality was so low? How come the spread was limited and such a low death rate as compared to the rest of the world? Well, at the end, I think COVID taught me a lot. I always take pride in being a soldier, teacher, and a doctor, but it reinforces that the nation comes first, organizations next, and subordinates thereafter, and myself comes last. When it comes to taking leadership, if you rule with your head, but you need to lead with your heart, if you need to see concrete results coming in, and that one needs to keep learning while we are teaching. And I think we all are learning. COVID has been the biggest teacher, and we need to keep finding our own solutions. And in pediatric terms, they have to be fast. They have to be acceptable, feasible, affordable, and sustainable. I think India needs that. And as a doctor, I think compassion and caring and empathy are paramount, and that healing is beyond treating diseases. Jai Hind, and thank you so much. I would like to acknowledge a huge mentoring and support and faith reposed in me by late General Bipin Rawat, the Chief of Defense Staff, then the Defense Crisis Management Group under the CIS, my team of dedicated officers, the DGAFMS, DGMS, Army, Navy, Air Force, who all gave me tremendous support when there was no time for brainstorming. There had to be ideas, had to be churned out within hours and implemented within a day. General Kanitkar, a special thank you, because while I was in the ops room alone at home, there was only one person to brainstorm my ideas, and he sat by me. My family and friends who always been a pillar of strength. And with that, I hope we have conquered this and won not just the battle against COVID, but this whole war against COVID. Thank you, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Madhuri. There's no words to express what we have felt after listening to this. After oration, as per protocol, there are not going to be any question answers. and there are not going to be any comments either. And I know that you are going to leave. So I request all of you to put your chats in the chat box. We will share everything with Madhuri. And Madhuri, I'm so proud and privileged to be your friend. And Indian Army and the Indian nation is really very, very lucky to get a person like you who's a soldier and a scientist, and you led this, and I'm sure everybody will sorely miss you. So now we'll go to the citation. Samir, please start the citation. And after the citation protocol, we have a small surprise for you because Madhuri has to leave. So we are not going to entertain anything in between. So Samir, please start.
Yes, madam. And it's really amazing what the war we did and what the armed force did accidentally. So it's a real time to give a good citation to madam. The citation will be read by our own Vice Chairman, Mr. Yashwant Bhave, sir.
I am now reading the scroll of honor presented to Lieutenant General Dr. Madhuri Kanitkar, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, and Vice Chancellor of MUHS for delivering the Padmabhushan Awardee Dr. R.D. Lele Oration 2022. Lieutenant General Dr. Madhuri Kanitkar, Madam, you are the first ever Army person to be appointed as the Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, the largest medical university in Asia. You have a special status amongst pediatricians of India as the one who has served defense services and rose to the prestigious post of Lieutenant General in the Army with over 39 years of meritorious service. As a medical student, you had an exceptionally bright career and had the unique honor of standing first in all the 3 phases of MBBS and awarded the President's Gold Medal and the Kalinga Trophy for being the best outgoing student of the graduate wing in academic and extracurricular activities in 1982 from AFMC. You are a noted pediatric nephrologist, having done your post-graduation from Mumbai and also training in AIMS, New Delhi, followed by fellowships at NUH, Singapore, and GOS, London. You had been the professor and head of the Department of Pediatrics at the most prestigious Armed Forces Medical College, and later as dean with over 22 years of teaching experience. You have received the Best Teacher Award of MUHS in 2008. You have also been awarded Vishishta Seva Medal in 2014, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal in 2018, and now the Param Vishishta Seva Medal in 2022. You serve as a member of the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council, as well as a member of the Niti Aayog Committee for Integrated Health. You have a multifaceted personality with an interest in golf and sports, with outreach programs to align education and research to public health. In recognition of your unique distinction in the field of defense services, medical services, and medical academics, we, on behalf of AACCI, are privileged to felicitate you and present the scroll of honor for Padmabhushan Awardee Dr. R.D. Lele Oration 2022 on this day, 30th January 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the excellent citation reading. Let's move forward now for the virtual awarding of the Oration plaque to our respected Madhuri Madam. this is a plaque what we had presented to her. She is already going to receive with surprise. Yeah. And this is a virtual awarding of the Oration plaque. We also give the virtual award to our chief guest, Dr. Mridula Phadke, madam. Thank you, madam, for remaining present as a chief guest for this program. And of course, to our guest of honor, Dr. Uday Bodankar sir, for even though his birthday, he remained till and for being a guest of honor. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. So before going, what of the thanks?
We have a surprise item. We are very, very honored that Madhuri's better half or life partner, no spouse is complete without the other person. And I'm sure Lieutenant General Rajiv gave her many, many inputs, as she said, the non-medical, and must have been a backbone through all the hard work which she did. So we thought there can be no other person than him to virtually hand over both the scroll and memento to Madhuri, just as he had pinned the Lieutenant General stars on her. So Rajiv, thank you so much on behalf of AACCI. Can you pin them there? Sameer, can we pin them so that they come on the main screen?
Madam, it is already pinned.
They are already on the screen.
Okay. So thank you so much, Lieutenant General Rajiv Kanitkar. I'm sure you, like all of us, you are very, very proud to have Madhuri as your life partner, and you both make a wonderful couple. And we are really honored with her fantastic speech. This is recorded on Facebook and it will remain live there, and people can read it again and again, those who have missed it. Thank you, Rajiv, so much. And thank you, Madhuri, so much. Thank you. Now, before we go to the formal vote of thanks, we have said nobody is going to make comments for lack of time since you are leaving. But I cannot resist calling one VIP. For pediatricians, the IIP president is the foremost, and we are very happy that Dr. Ramesh Kumar, the president of IIP, is here. So, Ramesh, can you speak for 2 minutes before we do the formal vote of thanks? Are you there, Ramesh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So thank you very much, Sadi ma'am, for the opportunity. In fact, it was a great day here, amazing day, an oration to a legend whom you all bow with respect, and to great talks by other legends here, Dr. Mridula Phadke ma'am, their experience and perspectives, and Dr. Uday Bodankar for the inspiring remarks. And of course, a great experience listening to the words from Dr. Madhuri Kanikar. Ma'am, we are really overcome by the way the army, the defense was moving ahead with the Sutra model, all the perspectives you put it, and we all really are so much obliged to the defense as to seen through your vision here today, and we really understand and we really feel grateful to the team for having given such great service during the COVID war. And what a great presentation it was, looking for the great perspectives from the very beginning till the Omicron and the future ahead. So that was a great time here, and we are really thankful to AACCI for organizing such a great event. And once again, on behalf of Indian Academy of Pediatrics, the Central Office Bearers, my greetings to Dr. Lele on his 94th birthday, and we wish to have many more orations with Dr. Lele on board with us, with listening to us and giving some words of wisdom. And again, congratulations, sincere gratitude to Sadi Bhavya Ma'am, Dr. Yashwant Lele sir, as well as Dr. Kanitkar and all Mridula Phadke Ma'am, all seniors. I'm so happy to see the who's who, everybody is on board here with the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. So happy that the institutions, all the NGOs and AACCI and similar organizations are taking up such great events. And we once again sincere gratitude, and Dr. Sameer for being the coordinator at the back end office. Once again, my sincere gratitude and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh Kumar, for your lovely words. And as a very senior past president 22 years ago, can I make a special request to you as the IIP president and the present board to honor Madhuri in a very, very, very special way in our pedicon which is coming. She truly deserved applause and appreciation from all the fellow pediatricians. And I'm sure we can find a wonderful way to celebrate her achievements and to thank her on behalf of IIP.
Yes,
So thank
madam.
you.
It's truly coming up. We are really on it, working on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And now we can go to the vote of thanks. Now, what I wanted to say was, after the vote of thanks by Sharmila Lele, our secretary, the formal function of the award will be, oration will be over. But there are many students, colleagues, etc. of Dr. Lele who last year also wanted an informal interaction. So after the formal vote of thanks, we declare the formal function to be over. But those of you who want to interact, please stay on board and we'll have an informal chat session. And on behalf of AACCI, thank you so much for all of you sparing this Sunday morning away from your families. But I'm sure every minute was worth it, listening to Madhuri, listening to Mridula, and listening to Uday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. And now our last part of our oration, that is the vote of the thanks by our AACCI secretary, Ms. Sharmila Lele.
Good morning, all. As Secretary of AACCI, it is my pleasure to give the vote of thanks today. First of all, our oration speaker, Lieutenant General Dr. Madhuri Kanitkar, Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, for accepting to deliver the second Dr. R.D. Lele oration and delivering an inspiring lecture. Thank you, Dr. Kanitkar. We thank the chief guest, Dr. Mridula Phadke, for gracing the occasion and her lovely address today. To the guest of honor, Dr. Uday Bodhankar, for sparing time to be here on his birthday. Wish you a very happy birthday, Dr. Bodhankar.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jayashree Ranade for her melodious recitation of Saraswati Vandana. Dr. Samir Shah, AACCI National Coordinator for planning and conducting and comparing this whole digital program. With his meticulous planning, he also took the big responsibility of getting the mementos and the citation done in Vadodara and couriering it to all our guests today. Dr. Sandeep Kavde, the National Parent Forum and AACCI PCB Center in charge for co-comparing, and Dr. Prashant Karia for handling the chat box. Mr. Dipen Mehta and Piyush from DigiShield for their Zoom platform and all the help given in registration of all our participants today. All the AACCI volunteers who are members of the AACCI family for circulating the banner and link of the oration. The last but not the least, for all the participants for sparing time and logging in for the event and multiplying our joy, as you all have been Dr. R.D. Lele's students, friends, and colleagues. The Lele and Bhavi families will always remember your presence at this very important occasion. Thank you and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you to all once again on behalf of the AACCI, and we now stop our oration.
Thank you, Madhuri, for having stayed so long. I know you are now ready for travel. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Madhuri Kanitkar, Phadke Madam, Swati, Yashwan, for celebrating my birthday in a better way. What can be more than getting blessing from Lele uncle and you all here? Dr. Patient IAP both are there. All my friends are there. Madam Phadke is there. I would like to thank Samir, Shah, Sandeep Kawade, and Sharmila Lele and Vikram. I know all of them since my childhood. So I'm really grateful to Swati. Thank you.
Thank you, Uday. It was
Happy
lovely having
birthday.
you.
Happy birthday, Dr. Uday.
Thank you.
Have an extra piece of cake from us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
And
Happy birthday, Bodhikar.
Okay, now we are starting our informal chat session.
Thank you.
Madhuri, I will send you all the chat boxes saved. All wonderful, wonderful comments about your oration and about you. So I will save it and send it to you by email.
Madam
Chat box is literally flooded.
Yeah.
Let us give 3 cheers to Dr. Swati Bhave first.
Yeah, three cheers.
Swati.
Three cheers.
Thank
Three
you.
cheers, three cheers for
Three
Madam
cheers.
for
I'm
doing
blessed
this
by
wonderful
having
event.
all of you.
Bapana sir, namaste.
Sir,
Thank you.
Now we are starting with our informal discussion.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
calling on Dr. Agarkar. Dr. Agarkar has been a very, very close friend of my father and our family, and he was instrumental in motivating my father to do the autobiography. Dr. Agarkar, would you like to come and say something orally?
He's my batchmate.
Okay.
GMC Nagpur.
Yes, Dr. Agarkar, unmute.
Namaskar. I would like to share some of my memories during the recording of audio autobiography, which many people might not be knowing. Dr. Lele was invited by All India Radio.
One second, Agarkar. Daddy is on the video. He's listening to you.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So he was invited for giving this audio autobiography. And just before him, the only person whose audio autobiography was done was Dr. Professor Sharma from UDCT. Raghunath Mashelkar interviewed him. And when Dr. Lele was asked, probably Lele sir is the only person whose audio autobiography is available in Marathi as well as English. So for English,